I thought I knew what love looked like after 5 years of marriage. Sarah and I had built something I believed was solid, something real. But over the past 6 months, things had shifted. She was working later, growing distant, and this name kept coming up in our conversations. Brad. Brad said this, Brad thinks that, Brad suggested we try. I told myself I was overthinking it, that I was being paranoid. I trusted her. I trusted us. Until one night at her company dinner party. That night I saw a version of my wife I had never seen before. And when she looked me straight in the eye and said those words, everything changed. If you are insecure, just leave. So I did. Before I tell you what happened that night, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever felt disrespected in a relationship, and subscribe. Because what I did after she said those words, she never saw it coming. And honestly, neither did I. This is a story about knowing when to walk away and what happens when you finally choose yourself. My name is Liam. I am 30 years old, and I work as a software engineer at a tech startup here in Portland. Sarah, my wife, well, my ex-wife now, is 29. She works as a marketing manager at a big advertising firm downtown. We met 6 years ago on a hiking trip organized by mutual friends. We bonded over our shared love for the outdoors, for adventure, for those quiet moments at the summit where the world spreads out beneath you and everything feels possible. We fell hard and fast. 2 years later, we got married in a small ceremony surrounded by the people we loved most. The honeymoon phase. It lasted longer than most people said it would. Our life together felt easy in the best way. Weekend mornings, Sarah would make pancakes from scratch while I brewed coffee in the French press she had bought me for my birthday. Movie nights every Friday without fail. Monthly hiking trips where we would disconnect from everything and just be together. We supported each other through the hard parts. When I had to code until 3 in the morning to meet a deadline, she would bring me snacks and remind me to stretch. When she was stressed about a campaign launch, I would listen, ask questions, help her think through the problems. We were not perfect. We argued about whose turn it was to do the dishes, whether we could afford a new couch, normal stuff. But it never felt heavy. We were a team. Then, around March of this year, things started to change. Sarah got promoted to a manager position. I was so proud of her. She had worked incredibly hard, and she deserved the recognition. But with the promotion came longer hours. She used to get home around 6 in the evening. Suddenly it was 8, then 9, sometimes even later. And this name started appearing in nearly every conversation we had. Brad. Brad said we should pivot the strategy. Brad thinks I have great instincts. Brad suggested I present at the client meeting. At first, I was happy for her. She was thriving in her new role, working closely with talented people. Brad was her colleague, the sales director. Of course, they would talk about work. But then our Friday movie nights started getting skipped. She was too tired. Our hiking trips got canceled. She had to catch up on emails, prepare for Monday meetings. The affection between us, those little touches, the way she used to rest her head on my shoulder while we watched television. It all started fading. She seemed exhausted all the time, distracted. I told myself she was adjusting to her new responsibilities. This was temporary. She would find her balance soon. But deep down, a small voice whispered that something was off. I ignored it. I did not want to be that husband, the insecure one, the controlling one. So I stayed quiet and hoped things would get better on their own. Then came the company dinner party. It was a Friday evening in September. Sarah mentioned it casually over breakfast that morning. Her team was having a dinner tomorrow night at some upscale Italian place downtown, and spouses were invited. I was actually excited. I had heard so much about her coworkers, especially Brad. This was my chance to put faces to names, to see the world she had been living in for the past 6 months. The dress code was business casual. I put on khaki pants and a navy button-down shirt, nothing fancy but presentable. Sarah wore a black cocktail dress that I had not seen before. She looked beautiful, more made up than usual. Her makeup was elaborate, her hair styled in loose waves. I told her she looked stunning. She smiled, but her eyes were on her phone, distracted. We arrived at the restaurant around 7:30. The private dining room was already filled with about 30 people, a mix of Sarah's team and their partners. The atmosphere was loud, energetic, everyone talking and laughing. Sarah was immediately pulled into conversations with her coworkers. I followed behind, shaking hands, introducing myself, making small talk about the weather and traffic. Everyone seemed friendly enough, but I felt like an outsider looking in. What struck me was how Sarah introduced me, or rather, how she did not. She would gesture vaguely in my direction and say, "This is my husband," then move on without even saying my name. I noticed, but I brushed it off. She was in work mode. This was her environment, not mine. Then Brad walked in. He was about 15 minutes late, and his entrance was impossible to miss. Tall, maybe 6'2", athletic build, dark hair, slicked back, expensive watch catching the light. His voice carried across the room, loud and confident. He scanned the space and his eyes landed on Sarah. His face broke into a wide grin. He walked straight toward her, weaving through the crowd like he owned the place. "Sarah, you look absolutely stunning tonight." His voice was smooth, practiced. Sarah's entire face lit up in a way I had not seen in months. They hugged, and it lasted just a second too long for comfort. Brad turned to me and extended his hand. "You must be the husband." "Brad. I work with this amazing woman right here." His grip was firm, competitive, almost like he was trying to prove something. I shook his hand and forced a smile. "Nice to finally meet you. I have heard a lot about you." "I bet you have," he said with a smirk. Then he turned right back to Sarah, and they launched into an animated conversation. Inside jokes, loud laughter, the kind of easy chemistry that made my stomach tighten. I stood there beside them, trying to join in, but I felt invisible. I tried asking Brad about his role in the company. "Sales director," he said, barely glancing at me. "I close the big deals. Someone has to bring in the money, right?" He said it with this condescending smile, and Sarah actually giggled. That was the first real pang of discomfort. I told myself I was being irrational, that I was reading too much into it. But the feeling would not go away. Dinner was served, and somehow the seating arrangement had Sarah and Brad sitting next to each other. I was across the table and down 3 seats, wedged between 2 accountants who were nice enough, but made painfully boring small talk about tax codes and spreadsheet shortcuts. I had a clear view of Sarah and Brad. Throughout the entire meal they were leaning close, whispering, laughing. His hand kept landing on her shoulder. She would playfully swat his arm. Other people at the table noticed. I saw the glances they exchanged, the raised eyebrows. My food tasted like cardboard. I forced myself to eat, to nod along to the conversation happening around me, but my focus was entirely on my wife, and the man sitting way too close to her. I tried to catch her eye multiple times. She never once looked in my direction. After the main course, Sarah's boss stood up to give a toast. He praised the team for their hard work, the successful campaigns they had launched, the new clients they had brought in. Then he called out Sarah and Brad specifically. "Our dynamic duo who landed the Henderson account," he said, raising his glass. Everyone clapped. Brad stood up, pulled Sarah to her feet, and wrapped his arm around her waist. "Could not have done it without my partner here," he announced, grinning at her. Sarah was beaming, leaning into him. They clinked their glasses together and held eye contact for what felt like an eternity. I clapped slowly, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. The accountant sitting next to me leaned over and whispered, "Those two have great chemistry, huh?" I forced a smile. "Yeah, great." Inside, my heart was pounding and my hands were trembling. Dessert was served and people started mingling, moving around the room. I saw Sarah and Brad at the bar area. He was ordering drinks and she was laughing at something he said, her hand resting on the bar right next to his. I walked over. "Sarah, can I talk to you for a second?" My voice came out tighter than I intended. She glanced at me, annoyed. "I am in the middle of a conversation, Liam." Brad smirked and said, "Give us a minute, buddy." Buddy. The word hit me like a slap. I felt a flash of rage, but I kept my voice even. "Sarah. Now." She rolled her eyes, excused herself from Brad, and followed me to a quieter corner of the room. I kept my voice low. "What is going on?" You have been all over Brad all night. She crossed her arms defensive. What are you talking about? We are just colleagues having fun. Colleagues do not touch each other like that, Sarah. You have not looked at me once tonight. She scoffed. Oh my God, Liam. You are being ridiculous. This is a work event. I am networking. That is not networking. That is flirting. And everyone in this room can see it. Her face hardened. You know what your problem is. You are insecure. I felt something crack inside me. I am not insecure. I am your husband and you are disrespecting me. Disrespecting you by talking to my coworker. Yes. By ignoring me, by letting him put his hands on you, by treating me like I do not exist. Our voices were getting louder. People were starting to look. Then Brad walked over, his expression all fake concern. Everything okay here? This is between me and my wife, I said without looking at him. Just making sure Sarah is all right, he replied smoothly. Sarah turned to him, and what she said next made my blood run cold. I am fine, Brad. Just dealing with some jealousy issues. Brad nodded sympathetically, touched her arm again. Let me know if you need anything. Then he walked away, but he stayed close enough to hear. I stared at Sarah, unable to believe what had just happened. She had sided with him. In front of me. In front of everyone. See, you are embarrassing me in front of my colleagues. My voice was shaking now, a mix of anger and heartbreak. I am embarrassing you, Sarah. You have been ignoring me all night for another man. She stepped closer, and her eyes were colder than I had ever seen them. You know what, Liam? If you are insecure, just leave. The words hung in the air between us. Silence. My world stopped. She had actually said it. She had told me to leave. I stared at her, this woman I had married, this woman I had loved with everything I had, and she suddenly felt like a complete stranger. My heart was breaking, but through the pain, there was also a strange clarity. She did not respect me. Maybe she had not for a long time. I took a breath. Okay. She blinked, confused. What? You are right. I will leave. I turned and started walking toward the exit. Liam, do not be dramatic, she called after me. I did not turn back. I walked past the confused faces of her coworkers, past Brad, who was smirking in the background like he had won something. I pushed through the doors and out into the cool night air. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called an Uber. My mind was racing, but underneath the chaos there was this strange calmness. One clear thought cut through everything else. I am done. The Uber ride home was silent. I stared out the window at the passing lights, the streets I had driven down 1,000 times, and they all looked different now. I got home around 10 in the evening. The house was empty, quiet, and it suddenly felt foreign, like it belonged to someone else's life. I did not collapse. I did not cry. Instead, something clicked inside me, and I switched into action mode. My mind was clear, with an almost eerie calmness. The decision had been made. I went straight to the bedroom and grabbed a large duffel bag from the closet. I packed clothes for a week, nothing fancy, just the basics. Toiletries from the bathroom. My laptop chargers, headphones. I gathered important documents, my passport, birth certificate, insurance papers, things I might need. On the nightstand was our wedding photo, the two of us grinning on the beach at sunset. I stared at it for a long moment, then placed it face down. I took off my wedding ring and left it on the dresser next to a simple note I scribbled on a piece of paper. You told me to leave. So I did. No explanation. No emotional outpouring. Just a statement of fact. I checked the room one last time. It was 11:30. I pulled out my phone and texted Jake, my best friend since college. Can I crash at your place tonight? We'll explain later. His response came within seconds. Door is open, man. I grabbed my keys and bags and walked out. I did not lock the door behind me. That was not my problem anymore. Jake lived in a small apartment downtown, a 20-minute drive from the house. When he opened the door, he took one look at me and said what happened. I told him the whole story, keeping it brief, factual, emotionless. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was angry on my behalf. She said, "What man, I am so sorry." He offered me a beer. I declined. I need a clear head. He set up the couch with blankets and a pillow. I lay down, but sleep would not come. My phone kept buzzing. Sarah was calling, texting. The messages started demanding, "Where are you? Stop being childish. We need to talk." I did not respond. Around 3 in the morning, I finally fell asleep. I woke up at 7 on Sunday morning. Jake was already up making coffee. I showered, changed into fresh clothes, and felt slightly more human. Over coffee, I said the words out loud for the first time. "I need a divorce lawyer." Jake did not hesitate. "I know someone. Attorney Wilson. He is good, really tough in court. Can you get me his number?" Jake made some calls, pulled some strings, and by Sunday afternoon, Attorney Wilson had agreed to meet me first thing Monday morning. I spent the rest of the day researching apartments for rent online, making lists, planning my next steps. Sarah kept calling. Her messages were getting desperate now. "Please come home. We can talk about this." I blocked her number. My mind was focused on one thing: protect my assets, prepare the documentation, and move forward. There was no anger, no thoughts of revenge, just pure determination to get out cleanly. Monday morning, I sat across from Attorney Wilson in his office. I explained the situation, calmly showed him the texts and emails that proved a pattern of Sarah's behavior over the past months. He nodded, taking notes. "Oregon is a no-fault state, but we can push for a fair division. You have some leverage here." I shook my head. "I want a clean break. I do not care about fighting over stuff. I just want out." He understood. By Wednesday, Sarah was served with divorce papers at her office. She called immediately. I did not answer. Thursday night, she showed up at Jake's apartment. I had Jake turn her away at the door. Her texts shifted from angry to pleading. "Please let us talk. I made a mistake. I love you." But the words felt hollow. Too little, too late. I took a week off work. I had plenty of saved vacation time, and I needed it. I found a modest one-bedroom apartment across town and signed the lease. I moved in with minimal furniture, just the IKEA basics: a bed, a couch, a table. It was small, but it was mine. I started therapy that same week. My first session was on Friday. The therapist helped me process what had happened, validated my feelings, gave me tools to work through the pain. I joined a gym near my new apartment and started going every morning before work. Lifting weights, running on the treadmill, physically exhausting myself so I could sleep at night. I started journaling, writing out my feelings instead of letting them eat me alive. I reached out to friends I had neglected over the years, guys I used to play basketball with, grab beers with. We started having regular hangouts again. Work became a focus, almost an escape. I threw myself into projects, volunteered for extra assignments, stayed late, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. And something unexpected happened. Within 2 months, I got promoted to senior engineer. My boss told me I had been performing at a higher level, showing leadership, taking initiative. The raise was significant. My life was slowly taking shape, different than before, but cleaner, more honest. Meanwhile, through mutual friends, I heard about what was happening with Sarah. Brad had already moved on, flirting with another coworker, someone younger. Sarah had realized too late that Brad was a player, that he had never been serious about her. She tried reaching out to me multiple times, emails showing up at my workplace. I maintained strict boundaries. All communication went through my lawyer. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. Oregon has a fast-track process if both parties agree to terms. We split everything cleanly. I kept my savings, my car, and walked away from the house. There was still a mortgage on it, and I did not want that weight. Sarah kept the house, her car, and her debts. I signed the papers without hesitation. I was free. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, my life was unrecognizable from what it had been a year earlier. It was December now, the holiday season. My apartment had transformed from a sparse crash pad into a real home. I had added personal touches, artwork on the walls, plants by the window, a bookshelf filled with novels I actually had time to read now. My morning routine was solid. Wake up at 6, hit the gym shower, and be at work by 8:30. I was excelling professionally, leading a major project that could define my career. Physically, I was in the best shape of my life. I had lost 15 pounds of stress weight and gained muscle. Mentally, I was clearer than I had been in years. Therapy was still a weekly constant, and I kept journaling every night. My social life had rebuilt itself naturally. I had a close group of friends, regular activities, game nights, weekend hikes. I had even started dating casually. Nothing serious. I was not ready for that yet, but I was open to possibilities, and that felt like progress. One Saturday afternoon, I was doing my weekly grocery run at Whole Foods. I was in the produce section reaching for a bag of apples when I rounded the corner and froze. Sarah was standing there looking at avocados. She looked tired, older somehow. Her hair was not styled the way she used to wear it. She was in casual sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. Our eyes met. There was a moment of tension, of mutual recognition, and all the history that came with it. She walked over slowly. "Liam." "Hi." Her voice was tentative. I nodded. "Sarah." Awkward silence stretched between us. She looked me up and down. "You look good. Really good." "Thanks. I am doing well." I kept my voice neutral, polite but distant. She bit her lip, glanced away, then back at me. "I have been wanting to talk to you. To apologize." Her voice cracked slightly. "I was so stupid. I took you for granted. Brad was nothing. Just some ego trip. And I lost everything that mattered." I listened, and the strange thing was, I felt nothing. No satisfaction in her pain, but also no urge to comfort her. No instinct to fix things. She took a breath. "Do you think maybe we could try again? I have changed." "I really have." I looked at her, this woman I had once loved more than anything, and realized something profound. I felt neutral. No anger, no bitterness, no lingering love. Just a calm acceptance of what had been and what was now. I spoke gently, but firmly. "Sarah, I hope you find what you are looking for. But it is not with me. Not anymore. Take care of yourself." I turned to walk away. She called after me, her voice desperate. "Liam, please." I kept walking. I did not look back. That evening I sat on my couch with a cup of tea, watching the light fade through my apartment windows. I thought about the encounter, about how far I had come. I realized I had truly moved on. There was no bitterness, no what-ifs replaying in my mind. She had made her choice that night at the dinner party. I had made mine when I walked out the door. We were both living with the consequences. And I was okay. Better than okay. I was grateful, actually. That night, as painful as it was, had forced me to rebuild, to rediscover who I was outside of that marriage. I had become stronger, more self-aware, more confident in my own worth. I learned something crucial through all of this. Know your worth. For years, I thought being understanding meant tolerating disrespect. I learned there is a difference between patience and being a doormat. Self-respect is not negotiable. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. No amount of history justifies staying in a situation where you are diminished, where you are made to feel small. Walking away was not giving up. It was choosing myself. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is know when to leave. I also learned that actions speak louder than words. Sarah could have told me she loved me 1,000 times, but her actions that night showed me the truth. People reveal their true character under pressure. Brad was not the real problem. He was just a symptom. The real issue was that Sarah had stopped valuing me long before that party. I learned to pay attention to patterns, not promises. Trust actions, not excuses. And finally, I learned that healing is active, not passive. I could have let what happened destroy me, turn me bitter and cynical. Instead, I chose to actively rebuild. Therapy, the gym, reconnecting with friends, focusing on my career. Healing is not linear. I had bad days, moments of doubt where I questioned everything. But I kept moving forward. I invested in myself the way I had once invested in my marriage. I made myself my own priority. And I found peace, not in revenge, not in reconciliation, but in personal growth. Now, a full year after that night, I am standing at the window of my apartment, looking out at the city lights below. I have a cup of coffee in my hand and a sense of contentment in my heart. My phone buzzes. A text from Jake. "Drinks tonight?" I smile and reply. "Absolutely." Another text comes through. It is from Amy, a woman I met at a hiking meetup last week. "Still on for that trail run Sunday," I type back quickly. "Looking forward to it. There are possibilities ahead. No guarantees, no perfect endings. But I am open. I am healed. I am ready." That night, Sarah told me to leave if I was insecure. She expected me to stay, to beg, to accept less than I deserved. She never expected me to actually walk out that door and never look back. The something she never saw coming. It was not revenge. It was not bitterness. It was me choosing myself. Building a life where I did not need her validation. Finding peace without her apology. Sometimes the best response to just leave is simply leaving. And sometimes the life waiting on the other side of that door is the one you were always meant to live. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between your self-respect and a relationship? Drop a comment below and share your story. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more real stories about resilience, growth, and finding yourself again. And share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that you are worth more than settling, and that walking away can be the first step toward the life you deserve. Take care of yourself out there.